the Muster Point Beyond the Wire podcast. Another great interview coming up. We've got Billy MacLeod from Veterans in Action. And I have to say, Billy, you were my first experience of smaller charities after I come out of the military. So it's a great honour to be interviewing you. But if we can start, we'd like to start at the beginning. Tell us a bit about, I know you served with the Royal Engineers, but tell us a bit about your service, when you served, what you got up to, how you found the transition out the forces.
All right, so I joined the Army very young. I was 16 in 5 days when I joined Junior Leaders Regiment, Royal Engineers, and headed down. I was just a kid, really. In fact, even most of the guys in my training party were almost a year older than me. I was just a baby, But it was a really kind of transitional year in my life. I came from a pretty rough place in Glasgow. Don't get me wrong, I was all right. My family were good and all that. But the area was pretty damn rough. If anybody knows, it's Drumchapel in Glasgow. It's one of the roughest areas of Glasgow. And so you had a choice. I think I would have probably went into work because my dad worked. But there's always that chance you could go the other way where I lived. So I joined the Army, a young lad, and passed out at Dover a year later. I went to Germany, went to Hamel first to Engineer Regiment, to Amphibious Engineer Regiment. And I was still that young. I was still being paid as a boy soldier when I went to Germany because I was still under 17 and a half. So my first 3 or 4 months in Germany was as a boy soldier. And then my first tour in Northern Ireland I was 18.
How did you find being a young lad in Germany back then?
A young lad in Germany, the first night they take me into town and introduce me to some things that, it was definitely an experience. It's funny, I've just been in Hamel a few months ago, on expedition, and we went to my old pub, and I seen a door where that first night in Germany, I happened to go up the stairs of that door, and I was probably kicked out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, told I was crap, they're the things as a young lad. I served on a few operational tours, mainly Northern Ireland for me, because of the time I joined. I joined in 1977, so that's all that was really going on. Didn't do the Falklands because 9 Squadron was going down and we took their place in Belize, so I went to Belize instead of the Falklands. And yeah, I did a few tours in Belize as well. I was a boat operator out there and different other things but early on, when I was about 21, I got a knee injury, cruciate ligament and cartilages gone. And the Army, being the Army at the time, they didn't really treat it that well. I did 2 weeks in hospital and then back on full duty after 2 weeks leave, no physio, nothing, away by to going on tour again, and that my knee just progressively get worse. Operational tours, a few other operational tours, and a few tours everywhere the engineers go. We go everywhere, don't we? So I was pretty lucky in where I went.
Hence the motto, Ubik.
That's the one. And I ended up, I get into a bit of trouble, get bussed, sent out to another unit as to try and get my career back on track, so they said, and it never really got back on track, if I'm honest. Ended up back in a field squadron after 6 months in this. It was Barton Stacey I went to, military workforce. Basically, it was a dog's body. And went back to a field squadron, got promoted again. Then, because I had been bussed, they said that I had to go to training regiments to get seniority back. So I went to training reg, did the instructor's course. At that time, it was a nightmare of a course. It was a 10-week just getting battered, basically. We were treated worse than the recruits, which was fine. That's the way it was. But that battering just impacted on my knee again, and that's been an ongoing thing for my life now. I think I'm waiting to go for my 17th knee operation, all because of that one injury not being treated right at the first point. I did a year at training reg and signed off, because I was a bit scared. Joining at 16, I had no idea about civilian life at all. But this time I'm 25, 26. And I was offered a medical discharge, but I thought that meant I couldn't get a job in Civvy Street because I'd be downgraded and stuff like that. So I signed off instead of getting medical discharge. And Civvy Street, I suppose, it was a time before mobile phones and Facebook and all this stuff. Like, so basically, when you're out, one day I had 200 friends, the next day I had nobody. So
Yeah.
I stayed around the military town. I'd met my wife in Andover, and that's where I stayed because I knew some of my mates were still at Perham Down where I was based, just before training reg. But eventually they leave, they get posted on, and then you don't know anybody. And I suppose I went through a period of just getting in trouble and fighting, and I realised later on that's because my mental health wasn't that good, but I didn't see that at the time.
So what was this? The early 90s? 90?
Yeah, that was late 80s.
Late 80s. And so what, you said you sort of handed your cards in. Normally you didn't go for the medical discharge. So what was that transition like? I mean, did you have work lined up? Did you know what you wanted to do?
Not a clue. Like, this is the God's honest truth. My intention was, because I wanted to get away from training regiment. That wasn't for me. You either love that kind of thing or you hate it. I wanted to be back in the field squad, and that's where I was happy.
Yeah.
So my idea was I'll sign off, get back in 6 months later. That was the plan. But then you get out, you've got a house, and you've got to get a job. I never knew what job I was going to do. I'd just come out and I went like the old yachts out of kind of that program for years ago, and just went around industrial and said, "Give us a job," and I got a job the first day. It wasn't the best of jobs. I think it was a parcel delivery service, but I did that until I got myself sorted out, and then I did a series of jobs, and I realised I wasn't a great employee. I had too much to say, as you can probably tell, and I started, because I believed I was like just go and do my job and do it as hard as I can, but I realised Civvy Street wasn't quite like that. They just did what they had to do, whereas I thought you had to do a job and finish and stuff like this, do the job to your best ability.
Yeah.
So I realised I had too much to say to my bosses and the people I worked with. So in the end, I started my own business, which was a taxi business.
And how long did you do the taxi business for? I mean, it must have been quite suitable because you don't there's no one there to piss you off. You're sort of your own boss.
Well, it wasn't quite like that. Like, how I get into the taxis was kind of a weird thing. Like, I was on the oil rigs for a couple of years, and again, I had to come, I was doing 6 weeks on, 6 weeks off, that type of thing. And I couldn't handle 6 weeks off, if I'm honest. I've never had that much time off. At that time, I'd never had that much time off in my life, And in the pub one night, somebody said, "Well, I want to do a bit of part-time taxiing for me." And I went, "Aye, all right, I'll do that." So, on my 6 weeks off, I was doing a bit of taxiing. And in the end, in the oil rigs, my knee caught up with me again. I couldn't go up and down the derrick. I was carrying heavy weights, because my knee was just giving way on me. So I left the oil rigs and I bought a car, and I said, "Right, I'm going to start my own taxi business." And the idea, very naive again, I'll get a bunch of guys together and we'll all work for each other, and we'll all work and it'll all be great fun. In the end, I realised being a boss, you're quite on your own, and the guys all think you're a prick because you're telling them what to do, basically. And at that time, I was incredibly angry. I was fighting customers, I was fighting the drivers, I was unapproachable. And I realised anger was the kind of only emotion I had, which made my life at home for my family. That was a nightmare for them as well, because they didn't know who was walking in the door. And knowing what I know now, I know I was going through some mental health stuff like that, but I didn't realise that at the time.
Yeah.
I probably did that for about 20 years, I think. I think it was that long.
I know you mentioned that you stayed around Andover because that's where obviously your muckers from the army were, but then they start getting posted or moving away. So do you think losing that connection to your old muckers played a part in the poor mental health, in that anger? Absolutely.
I mean, I didn't know whether I was just being Glaswegian or whether I had extra anger issues. Some people would say I was always on a kind of like a short fuse type thing, but it wasn't for quite a long while later that I realised I wasn't a good place. Emotionally, I wasn't good. Never showed emotion, if I'm honest. The only emotion I had was like a trigger anger, like, you know, like it was just anything set me off, or nothing set me off. If I woke up in the morning and felt angry, I was angry for the rest of the day, and everybody knew it. You know, like it wasn't a good place to be, because I don't think it's naturally who I am. You know.
Yeah, I can certainly relate to that, and it's funny you say you don't think that's who you are, and I've learned that it was almost that thing that I'm an injured squaddy, or even just I'm a squaddy. Like I have to be a certain way. Society needs to see me as being angry, aggressive, because I guess that's what the army needed, and I can really relate to that. This is who I have to be, and the realization that that's not actually me is quite eye-opening. So how did you? I mean, it must. I'm guessing it came to a head somewhere. Was there a pivotal point where you thought this can't go on? This anger.
Yeah. Was there a pivotal point? I don't know if there was actually, mate. I mean, going back to what you said, I think when we joined the military, we're programmed a certain way, and we were taught to act in a certain way. I don't mean the aggression. I don't mean the anger. I mean, we want things done a certain way. And I found when I was running my business, when a guy would turn up 5 minutes late, well, we know what that's like. We don't turn up 5 minutes late. We are 5 minutes before the 5 minutes. Well, when I found myself chasing a guy down the road for being 5 minutes late, you realise you're just not quite right. You know, like and that continued. I think the catalyst was one day I was driving and a car came head on at me, and I swerved off the road to avoid him, and he took my car out basically. And I was doing a school run at the time, so I had a young kid and an escort in the car, and my I was in a Volvo. It just didn't disintegrate. Every panel was broken, but the car was fine. And I realised when I got out the car and I ran up the road to get the other driver to kill him, I realised there was something not quite right here.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, after that accident, which was about 2005, I think, I never really went back to work properly. My heart wasn't in it anymore.
Yeah.
And one day I walked into my business partner and says, I'm out. Here's the keys. Like, hand my shares to your son. I'm off. And I walked out.
Mm.
And which is a bit of a sickener, really, because they sold the business for quite a lot of money not that long ago.
That is a kick in the teeth, mate, isn't it?
There you go. That's the mental state I was in at the time.
Yeah. So did you reach out for support?
I was sent to a psychologist, and look, I'm not somebody that talks about my feelings that much, so going to a psychologist was a big thing for me. Like, and so I went to the first session, and whatever that happened in that session, like, I told her what I wanted to tell her, and left, and I went, get out, and I said to my missus, like, that's not for me. I'm not doing that again. But I had to go back. I had 10 sessions booked, so I had to go back for the second session. Yeah. And I walked into the psychologist and says, I don't know what you did last time, but I feel absolutely wonderful. I think you're a genius, like, and I told her exactly what she needed to hear.
Yeah.
And then she said, all right, I'll sign you off then. So I did 1.5 sessions, I think. Walked out to my missus and says, well, that's me, I'm done. Like, what do I do now? And that's when I started the process of doing what I do now.
Because I'm thinking 2005 was pre Help for Heroes, wasn't it? So I mean, so 2005 was when I joined.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think Afghan Iraq, you started getting the Help for Heroes. Like, it was more prominent, sort of, or it started becoming more prominent than mental health support. But I'm guessing back in 2005, there wasn't that much. I mean, where did you turn as a veteran? Where would you have turned?
Okay, so at that time, so 2005 is when I had the accident. I probably left my business in 2008. So I did go back for a short time, but I wasn't doing as much as I used to do. And as running a business, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do either. So it was about 2008, and Help for Heroes had just started, and they'd hit the media, and they'd come out with all these. And I think, whatever you think of Help for Heroes, what they did is they changed the face of military charities. They put more focus on the veteran, even though it was at that time for just Afghan and Iraq.
Yeah,
they made the bigger charities start looking inward and go, right, we need to change what we do. So I knew I was bad, and I started to look around for what was there, and I sat in my garden shed with another couple of sappers that I knew, and I planned a trip, thinking of Help for Heroes, not to start a charity. I had no intention of starting a charity, and I did a plan to drive to South Africa and back. Headley Court was churning out these guys that were injured and stuff like that, and me and another guy were suffering with mental health problems, and I thought back to my engineer days, the old Mac tasks we used to do, might have been called something different in your time, Stu. It used to be called military aid to civilian community. We'd go to some far-flung place and build something and change their lives. So that was my idea. We'll drive to South Africa and back, and on the way we'll fix a pump or build a wall or give mosquito nets out, whatever it may be. And I wanted to take a lot of guys from Headley Court. So I took that plan to Help for Heroes, and basically they messed me about for about 6 months, saying, "Oh yeah, good idea," and in the end I get called in and said, "Right, we're not going to help you." And I went, "Right, fair enough." But then the guy said to me, "We'll give you £10,000 if you leave your plans behind." I'm a stroppy Glaswegian, and I went, "Aye, not a chance, mate. You can poke that, So again, my wife was at this meeting, and I walked out and I went, "What do I do now?" Because that had been my focus. That's what was keeping me going, planning this thing. That's what I am. I'm a planner. So I was a bit of a loss, dejected when I left there, and she said, "Well, start your own charity up." And I went, "Right, I'm going to do that." I'd never looked into starting a charity in any shape or form, but I said, "Right," and 3 months later, we're a charity. And the two guys had been in my garden shed doing it with me. As soon as we got charity status, they went, "Right, we're off. This is too much for us." So I was on my own.
Oh, dear.
And I went, "What do you do?" I said, "I've no money to drive to South Africa and back." So this was getting to around, we got charity status in January 2009. So that year I started training as a thing called neurolinguistic programming and stuff like that, and I thought I was going to change the world with it, but I still didn't know what I was going to do as a charity. I'd linked onto another charity called Talking to Minds at that time, who put me through all these courses, and they were really good at putting me through the courses. But I'd set up a charity. I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to sit and do therapy. That wasn't my thing. It was good for me, if I'm honest. It made me look at myself differently. But I didn't want to do therapy, really. So I planned another walk. I planned another expedition, which was to no money. So I planned to walk from John O'Groats to Land's End. And we did that. We started that in, April or something like that in 2010. And over 27 days, I devised a system that we could split the day into six sections, and two guys would walk each section each day with support vehicles picking them up. And that meant we could cover between 60 and 90 miles a day, which meant we did the walk in 27 days. And it was life-changing, if I'm honest. The idea for me was to just do this walk and raise money to go to South Africa and back. But when you walk with one other person, you have to speak. And what we were doing is, if I was walking with somebody for a day, you just let it all out, and they let it all out, and you share experiences, what worked, what didn't work. Then the next day you'd walk with a different guy, and you'd do the exact same again, and so on and so on. And then before long, we found that we were talking openly about mental health without any issues, because we'd all heard each other's stories. So we became very tight within that group. But my thinking was always about, I'd seen that therapies and all this kind of stuff, and I started to do more study, and I found a program in Australia called Wilderness Adventure Therapy. And I realised that's what I wanted to do without the therapy part. The wilderness was the part, getting guys out and doing things that weren't the normal for them, and taking them out of their environment, which sometimes can be the problem they're going through, the environment they're living in where they don't quite fit in.
That going back to nature's an incredible, powerful tool. I know, Steve, you experienced. You had an experience. Funny enough, the guy you done it with was down in Hampshire as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, the Maverick Survival School.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've come across him. I spent the day there with my wife, and just there's something about being in nature, especially when you come from a suburban place. It does something to you. No mobile phones. There's no phone signal there, and my wife's always on her phone, so yeah, it sort of took her out of her comfort zone, but she loved it.
Yeah.
So,
well, that was kind of the idea, you know, like, and what I wanted to create, like, you know what it's like when you're tabbing in the army, you're going up a hill, you don't see nothing, you're just looking at the guy's boots in front of you, or his, you know, his pack, you're not even taking anything in.
Yeah.
The idea of the walking through the mountains for me was like that you'd get to the top and you'd go, fucking hell, look where we are, you know, look how good this is. And it was a kind of healing process without getting all kind of arty-farty about it. That's what it was. Like, you know, it was like, it was life-changing for me. And if I'm honest, mate, I started a charity to get myself better. I was incredibly selfish about it. And that's what I tell people to do now when they want to get better. Be selfish about yourself, how you feel.
Yeah.
And it was all about how I felt. And I knew if I took people with me on the same journey, like it'd be the same for them. So my big thinking of doing these expeditions and stuff like that, or for any project, whatever you do, is what happens when it ends?
Yeah.
What comes next? And I'd seen this with guys doing therapy. They do their 2 weeks or 6 weeks therapy, and they go home and to their bed sit and do the exact same things they were doing before. And before a very short time, they were back where they were before. Or sometimes even worse, because now they think, well, I failed because I've done all this treatment and now I'm back to square one. I'm never going to be fixed.
Yeah.
So I was seeing this and I was hearing this from all the people I took out. Like, you know, like they were all telling me the same stories. So when I was getting close to the end of that walk, I said to my mate, I says, we can't stop this. We have to keep going. Like, you know, like, so as soon as I get back from that John O'Groats to Land's End walk, I devised a series of walks called the Union Flag Walks. And each one would form a different part of the Union flag. So we'd done John O'Groats to Land's End. The next one we did was Land's End to Dover. Then we did Dover to Cape Wrath in the north of Scotland. Then we did Cape Wrath to John O'Groats to Dover. Then we did Cape Wrath to Land's End. And then we did Dover to Dover, I said that one. Then we did Hadrian's Wall to do the bit in the middle. And we've got one left to do, which is Strathy Point and to down here where I am in Hampshire.
Yeah.
That one's still to do. And then we walked around the coastline as well. Like, and I took about, I think in total we've walked 13,500 miles so far.
Bloody hell.
And I've taken over 500 veterans on these walks.
I know you've done some quite big expeditions. I recall one where Rob Lawrence was involved, and they were some incredible the vehicle was in some precarious position, but yeah, just share some of the adventures you've been on and the people you've helped.
I've been in a lot actually. Like, so Kev, who you had on the other week, like I joined Kev and Rob Lawrence. Everybody knows Rob Lawrence. He was the guy that was shot in Tumbledown in the Falklands War. Like, lost a third of his brain there. An absolutely legend of a guy. So Rob invited me to go on this expedition with him to the Himalayas. We were going to drive to the highest point. We're going to use Royal Enfield bikes and Mahindra Jeeps. I'm not a biker, so I was in a Mahindra Jeep. And I took one of the guys who'd been on some of our walks with us, a Royal Marine who was with us. And we joined a group of people. And if I'm honest, mate, being a scumbag for Glasgow, like, I hated rich people and I hated officers. But I think this expedition was a changing thing for me in my life. I think that the group was a mixture of very wealthy people, officers, just a great mixture of people. And I realised they were just the exact same as me, just their upbringing was different. And that was a kind of revelation for me. I'd never looked at these people in that way, because when I joined the army, there really was a class system. You didn't talk to the officers and they didn't talk to you. So that's kind of how I seen officers. But being with Rob and being with other people like him and normal people like myself as well, like and a mixture of civilians, disabled people like quadriplegics, like and mental health stuff, like all mixed in together. We just had a great time, and some of the things we've seen, and it was some of the places we did were really dodgy. Like, you know, some of the roads were, I mean, massive drops, like, and these old Jeeps and all that. And I knew I'm a fat guy, like I knew I wasn't getting out the door of that Jeep, like, you know, like it was an experience. And I learned a lot from that expedition with Kev's experience and Rob's experience. I learned a great deal of how to run an expedition. And I learned a great deal of how not to run an expedition as well with some of the stuff. So it was a great learning process for me, and that's what I took forward to everything I do now.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the challenges. I mean, obviously, our makeup funding is a massive one.
During Afghan and Iraq, we did fundraising all over the place, and people used to throw money at you because we were very relevant. We were in the news. We were in everything was in the news, and I don't mean us. I mean veterans and serving personnel. Everything was focused on veterans. It was like a curtain was drawn as soon as we pulled out of Afghan, and things changed dramatically, and everything became more difficult. And it's not that the public don't support veterans. They do in a huge way, but only if they know they have to. If the media is not saying our veterans need help, then they're never going to put it on there, and the people are never going to know they have to support us. So it became incredibly difficult. And that took us up to maybe 2020, I suppose, when COVID came, and things changed again dramatically. So it has been very difficult. So through COVID, I was out walking. I was planning a challenge to do a large challenge, and myself and a mate were walking around a lake near where we live. And a couple of days later, we'd seen the COVID thing on the news, but we never think it was going to hit us. Like that was abroad. That wasn't here. So I'm planning to do this challenge that would raise pretty good money, I suppose. And all of a sudden, we get told we're going to go into lockdown. So the funny thing was, like my mate, he moved into my house because he just had a hip operation. He's our operations manager here, Duncan Crockett. He moved into my house because that's what we thought we were going to look after him while he's recovering. And then COVID hit. So he's in my house, and I moved into the office. I moved my bed and all that up to the office, and I stayed there through COVID. And the reason I did that is I didn't really know if we could survive if it didn't work. You know, if we weren't out physically fundraising or raising profile, we would have disappeared as a charity.
Yeah.
So I looked at what was happening because we were 3 miles from Help for Heroes at Tidworth there, and they closed their doors. British Legion closed their doors. Everybody closed their doors. We stayed open. So what I did was I knew the guys I was working with, and we tend to get some of the most vulnerable people. They're on the verge of taking their own lives or whatever. We tend to get the ones that maybe some of the other organisations they've been through all them, and they're just at a loss at the end. So we tend to get them. And I knew if we closed the doors, we probably wouldn't have seen some of these guys again.
Yeah. So
it was important for me, not just to keep the charity going, but to keep the veterans alive, basically. And I know that might sound like a Billy Big Bollocks. It's not meant as that. That was the truth of it. So what we did was I put a call out every night. There was a local pub that was going to start doing deliveries of medications and all this, and I went to the first meeting, and if I'm honest, it was like Sibby's trying to organise something that was driving me crazy. Cause I'm a planner and an organiser. So I said to our trustee, I said, I'm not doing that. Just we'll do our own thing. So each night in my office, because I was here on my own most of the time, every night anyway, I put a call out for household items, food, blah, blah, blah. And we started to bring the guys in, and I'd have a list in the morning. So this is where we need to pick up from. You need to go to all these houses all over the area of where we live, and they'd pick up all these stuff. They would then take them to the pub, who'd put them into care packages, and in the afternoon our guys would go out and deliver all this stuff to people in need. And I think through that period we delivered food and essential items to about 6,000 people.
Yeah.
Also what I did, because that obviously the deliveries were pick-ups in the morning, deliveries in the afternoon. What do they do the rest of the time? So the rules at the time was you could walk with one other person. Now, walking was my thing because that's what I did for years, doing these long-distance walks. So I'd have time slots during the day where I'd invite three or four people up a day, and we'd go for an hour's walk around the estate that we're on. We're lucky we're on a private estate. Yeah. So I'd do these walks 3 or 4 or 5 a day, with different veterans. And I think in the end I walked with about 200 people during that time as well, some more than once. most more than once, if I'm honest. And that's how I filled that time, and how we continue to do the work we were doing. And there was a small window during COVID where we came out of lockdown, and I took a group of guys and we went to France and we did a small expedition there in our overland vehicles.
I was going to think it was 2015. Me and two of my mates done the 3 Peaks Challenge and raised quite a nice bit of money for Veterans in Action. Something I'm very proud of. And I remember coming down. I think I've been down to VIA, your base, a couple of times, and I just. Obviously, it was some time ago now, and a lot's happened. But just, tell us about that area you've got, because I remember it being so functional, but like an adventure training centre more than a therapeutic centre.
I think, in many ways, what sets us apart from a lot of other small charities is that we have got premises, and we're in a beautiful place in a private estate, and we've got workshops and offices and stuff like that. I think that kind of sets us apart from some other organisations. Yeah. Since you were last here, it's developed even more. It's just a fantastic place. At the time you visited us, I think our sole thing was expeditions. That's what all we were on about. 2016, I became very ill. I ended up in hospital for 5 months and probably wasn't expected to leave hospital. So when I was in there, I thought, right, we need to do something else. So I don't even know what I was thinking. It probably kept me going to hospital because I didn't think I was going to be leaving. But when I came out of hospital, I put in for some grants, and the Masonic Charitable Foundation, part of their tercentenary, gave us $25,000, and it changed what we did. I mean, it might not sound a lot of money, but we started to get some vehicles in to strip them down and go back to the original plan of driving to South Africa and back. Although South Africa wasn't a thing now. So I planned an expedition to drive to Greece and back using overland vehicles that we had built. And I'm not a mechanic of any sort, so I expect other people to be able to do that, not me, even though I'm fully involved in it all. And I realised at that point, this was 2017, all my focus had been on expeditions, which might be 3 or 4 months apart. And then I realised the day-to-day stuff, working in a workshop, was the real therapy. And the expeditions was the bit that you work towards. And that changed the focus of the charity to become more centre-based, but working towards getting out and using the vehicles to do something. And that's kind of where we have been. And like I said, through COVID, we used these vehicles that we'd built to deliver the food and essential goods. And that became the focus of the charity. And again, that goes back to the expedition in the Himalayas, where we used vehicles and to change people's lives. Now, the way we built the vehicles was they've all got a different purpose within the fleet of vehicles we got. And we're now on our 3rd lot of vehicles we've built. So I think we're continually building vehicles or improving them, because there's always a focus on that. And then we surround that one main project with other projects like filming. So not everybody wants to build vehicles. So how do you get them involved? How do you get people that don't want to build vehicles involved in that process?
Yeah.
And the way we did it was, if you can imagine, you've got 2 projects. One builds vehicles and one does filming. They're kind of separate and people don't mix. But the way we did that was to film the guys building the vehicles. So they're all doing the same thing. They're all within the same project. And we found that worked incredibly well. And then we started another workshop. I mean, you see like the stuff I'm wearing, like the logo and that, we do the embroidery. So that's another project we've done. And that's to give the guys who work in the vehicles or do the film, and they all get clothing, and they all do their own clothing. So they're all all the projects are centered around that one main project, which is the expeditions. And then that's what we work towards. We've literally just come off an expedition about a month ago.
I'm getting vibes of forming your own sort of British Army, where maybe the main effort is to go to war, but you've got all these support sort of mechanisms in place which are there to support the main effort, and it's building that sense of camaraderie again, which Steve and I, through the muster point, like the feedback we get is the main thing that like people miss. Like squaddies, from what we've been seeing, that they don't want to be told, oh, you need to go to hospital or go see a therapist. It's about building that relationship, building that camaraderie, and then you can pick up on things naturally. Go, oh, mate, like, what do you reckon to this? It really does sound like that. Yeah, building an army.
Steve, me and you are sappers, mate. Like, so we are, as what they call support arms. Like, and and that's basically what we are. You know, like a lot of the guys we get in aren't engineers, although we do get quite a few engineers in. And that they come in because they know who we are, and basically it's our background they come for. But obviously we're not I'll tell you what, somebody said to me one time, and this was General Mans, who was the Chief Royal Engineer at the time. He said to me, so you're an engineer charity? I says, no, we're a charity led by engineers. And that's the difference. Like, we happen to be sappers, but the people we help are from all the things, as we did in the military.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think the whole thing about us, mate, is Kev was talking about PTSD on your last podcast that I watched, and that's Kev Gorlington, for those that haven't watched it. Kev was talking about every man and his dog's got PTSD, and he's right. Every man and his dog has got PTSD, but have they got PTSD? And I would suggest a lot of them don't. Does that mean they haven't got mental health issues? Absolutely they have. But this comes down to GPs. I think that's the start of it. The GP will say to them, like, oh, you were in the military, it must be PTSD. And that guy or girl will leave the doctor's office saying, I've got PTSD. But the reality is they haven't been diagnosed with PTSD, because only a psychologist can do that. So they walk around saying they've got PTSD, and they may have some symptomologies of PTSD. I don't take that away from them. The biggest glaring difference between PTSD and say depression or any other anxiety or whatever is the flashbacks and nightmares. I know you've been through that, Stu. You know, like, so I don't need to tell you that. That's the difference of PTSD. And I would say a lot of the guys I get in, not right this moment, because I would say the people we're working with now all have PTSD, but we have had them in the past where they come in with a diagnosis of or what they believe is a diagnosis of PTSD, but they're suffering from life problems, like as we know, squaddies are children, right? We've not really grown up. We act like kids. We don't really live an adult life in the military. We have to do adult stuff at times, but most of the times we're children. Like, you know, like we're off for the crack in it. And what I believe is most people miss that. I believe that the transition from military to civilian life can be harsh. Depending on where you live, can even be worse. You know, like you can be incredibly isolated in civilian life. And squaddies are idiots, aren't they, with money? We all end up in debt. I'm not saying all, I'm just generalising here. A lot of them end up in debt, housing problems, marital problems, all of the life problems that you can pile onto them they have. And usually by the time we get a veteran in here, mate, they're usually got all of that. So PTSD is the presenting problem, but it isn't the problem. It really isn't the problem. You know?
I know, Steve, you shared, we've spoken about it when you left the tank regiment, that you had no concept of like paying water bills or it's nothing. All like, well, what's all this shit? And I think that's what people maybe on the outside, or even veterans themselves, they don't acknowledge that as like, oh, well, I didn't get blown up at war, I didn't experience anything bad. But the fact that the army's or the forces are an institution where everything's funded for you, and my experience and a lot of people's experience, that apart from the odd CV writing course, there's no transition back of, oh, this is what to expect in civilian life. And then when you like you have to pay bills that you've never heard of, manage, as you say, life things, then it's like that's where it starts breaking down.
Yeah. Well, that's I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this for 17 years now, and that's what I would say is the biggest problem. Lack of purpose. Where do I fit in now? I mean, there's one guy, he is a sapper, like a guy I've been working with for quite a few years now. He was clearing IEDs and Afghan, and then he's back to doing a mundane job that he hates with an absolute passion. And then he just gets into depressions, like, because like I was important once, and now I don't feel important. And I would say that's the overriding problem we have, not PTSD. But when you get genuine PTSD, you know the difference. You know the difference right away. And it's not that we won't work with these other guys. Of course we do. Like, I don't care what the diagnosis is. In fact, a diagnosis is just a diagnosis. You deal with the presenting problem. But we're not therapists. And I think the therapy that you maybe get from Up Courage or combat stress or PTSD resolution, wherever you go, like, to get that therapy, and the different organisations that do that, is incredibly important.
Yeah.
But equally important is what happens before and after, and during therapy. They have to have a place they can go to. They can go, just reset. Because if you can imagine, and this all comes from people I've worked with, is that one guy was going to combat stress, and he'd leave on a Friday, and they'd open the doors to too much from Iraq. He would drive home to where he lived in Devon or Somerset, whatever it was. He was a booty. And on that drive home from Leatherhead down to Toy Town was tragic, mate. Tragic. He just was in bits through that journey. And that's impacted him since. He will now not go to therapy because that's what therapy did to him. He's the guy I took out to the Himalayas with me. He's a good friend. But he's stuck now because he won't go to therapy. And what he does, the therapies have changed since that time, massively changed. Our understanding of PTSD is massively changed. But we have to couple therapy with something else, activity. And come back to, that's a long way of saying that, our centre's that kind of place. It's a place where you come to do things.
I totally agree. From my experience, both having suffered and been in a professional capacity now, I think mental health needs, in some circumstances, it will need medical intervention. They'll need some form of therapy, whether it's CBT, talking therapy, DBT, whatever. But also there needs to be some sort of activity, whether it's an outdoor activity, an indoor activity, whether it's driving on a land expedition or filming it. Like, it needs to be holistic. And I'm just wondering whether, I know in the early days you said Help for Heroes turned you away, but do you work alongside, or is there any crossover with what you do and working with Up Courage and the other organisations? Do you get referrals?
Yeah, we tend to refer and get referrals from Up Courage.
That's good.
I tried with combat stress years ago, and we were referring to combat stress, but they would never refer back in. I feel like I've got quite strong thoughts about the veterans charity sector, as in it's fractured. I believe that we all talk about working together and it'd be a great thing. The reality is we never do, and that's getting harder because money's shorter. And so we tend to look inwards and we only look after ourselves. And I believe a lot of organisations look more at the organisation than the people we help. Now, I kind of look at it differently. It's not that I'm better than anybody else. I look at it differently because I look at myself as somebody that needs help. This is my therapy. And I know it's my therapy, it's other people's therapy. And I think, I believe that the grassroots organisations and people's communities are the real heart of veterans getting help. The big charities, they're like a top cover, but they should be referring or maybe helping fund some of the smaller charities that are doing really, really good work. And I'm not talking about Veterans in Action, I'm talking about little charities throughout the country are doing amazing work that are the lifeline for people that live in that community, that you might wait 6 weeks for an appointment to see somebody in one of the other organisations, whereas the smaller charities, you go in that day and they look after you that day. And then hopefully they refer on to the larger charities like Up Courage and vice versa type thing.
I think the amount of people Steve and I have spoken to on the podcast recently have all said the same thing, that the big boys of veterans charities are there seems to be in some cases there'll be referrals and they're happy to pass clients on and work together, but there seems to be we're not funding you for it. Like, we'll signpost this guy, but and it's just a bit. Well, it's sad because, again, the other thing that comes up all the time is how in the forces teamwork was the biggest thing. You work together, you're all part of the machine, and in after service, like particularly with the charities, it seems like we've forgotten that. Like, let's work together for the benefit.
Yeah, it's all about money, mate. We're all feed out the same trough, and we're all protective of what we got, so we don't want to share. And that's not how I think at all. And that brings me to what we're looking to do in the future type thing. Like, I don't want to give too many details away because the big charities will nick it, like Help for Heroes a year ago. Like, but basically, I want to set up a Veterans National Challenge that we're going to set up a new company, the Veterans National Challenge Company, with a website. And the idea is we set up challenges to try and incorporate Armed Forces Day. Some Armed Forces Day around the country are absolute dog shit. You know, like they're not even lip service. And I speak for myself here in Andover. They'd won it the weekend or last weekend or whatever it was, and I didn't go because we weren't invited for one. Like, as a local military charity, we weren't invited. There was a load of civilian stands at it, and they raised money for gay pride, believe it or not, at the Armed Forces Day. And one of the guys we help, he was there, and he just kicked it off on Facebook and said, like, this is crap. There was not even any military presence, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that got me to thinking, like, I mean, you got to think where we are. We're surrounded with Tidworth garrisons, one of the biggest garrisons in the UK. Yeah. We've got Army HQ here, and that's the level we get for Armed Forces Day. We should be a beacon for Armed Forces Day where we are. That. So I'm working on plans now to do a big event here next year, which will incorporate challenges like we've got Thruxton and Race Circuit down the road. So I'm trying to get in touch with them to try and do a challenge around the racecourse, whether it may be just walking or whatever we do it. Yeah. But the national challenge will be for other organisations to set up their kind of thing in the same model we're going to build. But it all comes in through the Veterans. It's all under a banner of the Veterans National Challenge. Because how do we get noticed as veterans again? If we just do a small events like throughout the country, it never gets noticed. But if you could think of doing a national event, so it's getting national presence, then every charity raises the money for their own, every organisation and supporters raise the money for their charity of choice. Everybody gets a fair whack at it then. So rather than one charity benefiting, all charities benefit. And that's kind of what I hope to talk to Kev about, because he's obviously got the eye of the Veterans Minister and stuff like that, and or the ear of the Veterans Minister. And I hope to develop that over the next year. And I think an annual event that people can get involved in. So if you were supporting Combat Stress, I know that you do that one up in Liverpool, I can't remember the name of it. If you wanted to raise money for them,
Tom Harrison House.
Tom Harrison House. You sign up on the Veterans National Challenge, but you've raised money for Tom Harrison House. You don't raise money for Veterans National Challenge because we don't want to handle any money. Because when you handle the money, you get accused. That's the nature of the veterans community, I'm afraid. So we don't want to handle any money. You raise the money for your charity, and it goes directly to them on their fundraising pages. But it's about the presence of veterans. We need to make sure that people know we're still here. And the other factor is, as Kev kind of mentioned on your podcast last week, most veterans transition pretty damn good from the military, and they become successful, and they run businesses, or they're directors of businesses. They just get such a presence. We need to tap into that presence and say, look, we're veterans, we're successful, but we want to support those who may need help. Yeah. And that's what the Veterans National Challenge is going to be about.
Interestingly, I think it's on Friday, we're interviewing, I think it's Rob. So Rob, maybe you've heard, so he's the man behind, I think it's Veterans T-shirt Day, and what's the festival called, Steve?
Oh, At Ease Festival.
The At Ease Festival.
I've seen At Ease before, but look, perhaps this is a conversation we need to have, because I think, right, so they're doing that for whatever they're doing it for. But can you imagine that was done under a banner of Veterans National Challenge? And all these challenges going on, it's under that one banner which means the media have to take notice, which means the papers have to take notice, which means social media has to take notice of everybody doing something under one banner.
Yeah.
If you can imagine, I'm doing something for Veterans in Action. If you're up in the north of Scotland, you don't care what I'm doing down here.
Yeah. I
But
agree.
if I was doing something for Veterans in Action down here, and somebody was doing one for one of the organisations in Scotland, but it's all under the same banner, guess what? They all have to take notice. They'll be saying, what's this Veterans National Challenge about? And it's to do their own challenges. It's just under the same banner. Because we need to get veterans in the forefront of our thinking now. And if we don't, we'll lose our veterans, because it's just gradually going to get worse. But you know what? All these organisations like me are trying to get money in all the time. I spend half my time now not doing the work I'm supposed to do because I have to make the charity run. And that's not what I want to be. I want to work with veterans. That's where my skill set is. But most of the time I'm writing grants, and most of the time I'm chasing up sponsors, and I'm doing this.
Yeah.
If we work to one big challenge every year, and that was the thing you focused on, and the veterans you were working with get fully involved in it, well, guess what? You're doing the work of helping the veterans and giving them purpose. Plus, it helps keep the organisation that they support running. You know, I don't think there's a better model than that all of us working together for the same purpose.
No, I agree. It's that teamwork again, isn't it? Bringing that teamwork. Let's work.
Remember, we used to say together, everyone achieves more. That's
exactly.
You know, like, and do you know what? I'm passionate about what I do, but it's getting to the point. I was on the expedition just a month ago, and for the first time, I've thought about retiring. And it's not because I don't want to do what I do. It's because I'm fed up chasing money.
Yeah.
So I want to create something that brings money in to be able to do the work I do and to be able to help more people.
Yeah.
And I think if that's the focus, that's what the focus needs to be. And do you know what? I've got guys here, the Special Forces guys, they are all broken, but they are all fully involved in this, like from Special Forces to whatever regiment or corps or branch of service you're in, they're all vested in this to make this work. So they're going to look at the local event, i.e. our Thruxton event, and I'm going to look at more of the national challenge, how we get organisations to start working towards the same thing without it seeming as a threat, like, because that's how we see it now. We always see it as, what's their agenda on this? Well, our agenda is helping veterans. It's as simple as that. There is no agenda about big wages or anything like that. You know, like we won't handle the money anyway, so there won't be any big wages. The idea is just to help veterans and help the organisations that help them. You know, I wish I didn't have to do this. I wish the British Legion gave their $65 million a year to charities to help them keep going. But that's not a reality, is it?
No. So just before we wrap up, just bringing it back to VIA and how, say a veteran out there listening to this, how can they reach out to you? What can they expect from VIA?
So you can expect to be welcomed by open arms. Like, no, that's the first thing. You come in here. Our language is very differently deliberate here. We speak like squaddies. There's no filling in the forms when you first come in. That's done at a later date because you fill forms everywhere else you go. We don't do that. The idea is to come in and just feel comfortable, get involved, and it's a hands-on charity. You get involved with whatever we're doing at that time. There's no, well, I don't do that. It's like if we sweep up, guess what? We all sweep up. It's the old, like, sweeping the tank park or sweeping the rig park, like when I was in, like, it's that method here. To get a hold of us, www.veteransinAction.org.uk, or we're all over Facebook. Just look up Veterans in Action on Facebook. We're all over there.
Yeah.
And all the other mediums as well, like Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
All right, happy days. Have you got anything, Steve?
No, I think it's amazing what you're doing. Just quick, what trade was you in the engineers?
I was a very, very bad bricklayer.
Is that why you didn't get into bricklaying then?
Well, I did briefly when I came out. I'll tell you what it is, Steve. The Army teaches you to do these trades. I went and done my bricklayer's course at Chatham, and you leave there, and you're not bad at laying the bricks there. You've not got the speed of a civvy guy, like, because you're doing it in 9 months for your apprenticeship. But then you go back to your field squadron, and you might not touch a brick again because your role's different. Yeah. And then I know for me, I did a tour. I'd done my brickies course in 1981, I think. 1984, I went to Belize, and they took me off my boat section to say, because we were short of brickies, and they said, right, build that. And I just looked at them as if they were mad. This massive building in Belize. I said, you want me to build that? I says, I've not laid a brick for 3 years. You know, like, but that's how you're not good at your trades, because you don't do them. That became apparent in Afghan, by the way, when the Australian engineers who do it completely different, they do their apprenticeships with civvy companies, then go back to their unit. So they're all kind of accomplished bricklayers by the time, or whatever trade it may be. They called the Royal Engineers to go and help them build something at Bastion, and they sent them off site by lunchtime because they were rubbish. Unfortunately, that's the problem with our trades in the military. We don't get to use them enough unless you're like a remay or you're doing a day job. Like, and the engineers, you don't get to use your trades enough, which means you're not that great at your trade.
A question that's come up, Billy. Do you ever recall? So apparently, there's a nickname for the Royal Engineers, wedgeheads.
Yeah, wedgeheads. It's because of the way we used to wear our berets, mate, like years ago. So that was in when I was serving, like the wedgeheads they used to call us, like, you know, because we used to have two-way stretches in our berets and look like a bunch of pricks, like, you know.
Well, there we go, Steve. We've got an answer.
Yeah.
We've got an answer.
Well, the tankers used to get called as well because they wore their kind of ear defenders on, didn't they? So their berets was always like that, you know, like stretched both ways.
We talked about that earlier. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add, Billy?
Mate, you know me, I could talk for hours, mate. Like, and I've enjoyed this. Like, I hope I've not wrapped your ears off. Like, you know, like, I'm fine, mate. It's all good.
As I said in the beginning, you were my first introduction to apart from Blesma, but I didn't really have a lot of interaction with them. So you were the first veterans charity I experienced, and certainly an independent one, smaller one. And I remember what you used to say back then, and I sort of paid lip service to, I'm not going to need that. That's not going to affect me. And then, well, lo and behold, it did. And everything you said, 13, 14 years ago, I'm now seeing play out in the work that I do. And it's sad to think that it hasn't changed.
And I've learned so much more since then. I was still learning process then. Like, we've devised our own kind of methodology now. Like, we use a system called post-traumatic growth, which comes from the United States. So it means certain aspects of your life can be better despite having PTSD. It's not true for everybody. So and this was a revelation to me in hospital when I was in hospital for 5 months, where I started to study. And I knew what we were doing it was powerful. I knew what we were doing was like the kind of practical projects and all this kind of, and get people out on expedition. But I didn't have a name I said I work with guys with PTSD. That's how I used to say. And then I read this study from an organisation in the United States called Boulder Crest Retreat, and they'd done a study on a thing called post-traumatic growth, a guy called Cahoon and Tedeschi. They came out with this study in the 1990s on post-traumatic growth. And when I read their study, I realised that's what we were doing, but we were doing a practical method of that rather than a kind of psychological method of it. We were doing it as a day-to-day basis. So if you could do something today that you didn't do yesterday, a month ago, or a year ago, you're growing. And we want people to recognise that. And it doesn't mean you grow every day. It really doesn't mean that. It's a long process to getting fixed. One of the big things I've missed saying to you, is that about this post-traumatic growth, is that when we get guys in, they are surrounded with this myriad of other problems that underlie PTSD. And if you can imagine PTSD is in the middle, it's surrounded by all these other problems. Now, what we've done in the past as organisations and everything we've sent guys to get PTSD therapy and all this kind of thing, and they get back to the same problems. So that their problems are still there.
Yeah.
That's why they're dragged back in to the reality of their illness again, because these problems are still underlying. Now, we happen to have a guy here who is an absolute genius. He's ex-Foreign Legion, ex-GIGN from the French, and he used to use dark trades to destabilise governments. So he learns how the workings of governments are done and stuff like that, and how their systems work. He came to us through Up Courage, as they didn't know what to do with him. And now what he does for us is we've got his PTSD kind of on kind of a good level now. And now what he does, he uses the dark skills that he used to learn in Foreign Legion to actually get other guys their compensation.
Yeah.
He literally takes them from the first phone call, fills all the forms in. The veteran does nothing apart from just say who he is for clarification to the organisations. And this guy does, and he's got a girl helping with him as well, or a woman helping with him as well, who's ex-army, ex-police. They do this, and they even represent him in court because he's an advocate as well from France. And he can represent him in court, and he's won in the last year, he's won nearly £3 million for veterans that we work with, making them financially stable. So all that stuff we're talking about, PTSD, it surrounds, we gradually get rid of all this stuff that surrounds PTSD. So when I work with a veteran, I work solely on their PTSD. So all the other stuff is gone. But it takes time to do all that because the systems don't work quickly.
Yep.
That's why building Land Rovers gives it the time to do that, because a Land Rover can take a year or 18 months to build. So through all that process, they've still got the purpose and they're still coming in, they're still involved. And while all that's happening, all the stuff in the background is being taken care of. Yeah. And I don't know another organisation out there that actually does that from start to finish to actually represent them in the tribunals. And Owen does all that. He's an absolute genius at what he does, which makes my job incredibly easy, I think, on just solely working on PTSD. That's how the system works here. I'll tell you what, Stu, Steve, come down and visit us and see what we do, and then maybe we'll talk again, and you can ask more questions.
We definitely will.
Form stuff that you've seen here and why we do things and the processes. I think that'll be good. We love people to come and see us because we don't talk bullshit. You come and you make your own mind up. Like, you come and say, this is crap or this is really, really good. That's your personal opinion, like, and we welcome that, like, because we're not saying we're the best at everything. We make mistakes like all organisations. But what we do, it's done from the heart. It's done a good place and solely to help guys get better.
I'd love to come down, and Steve and I will have a chat and we'll tie in some dates because
I'll bring your spanners.
Bring your spanners, you can get amongst it. But just to see how far you've come. But it sounds incredible that, because this is the thing, like PTSD is just one part of these veterans' issues. Like, as you said, you've got like the life things like finances, housing, relationships, and health, like physical health. Like there's a lot to it, and by the sounds of it, to offer that holistic approach, it's incredible.
I think, Stuart, some of our best days here is not because we're not. You don't come here and work for 8 hours. That's not the idea of it. We work when we have to work. Like in the army, you work hard when you have to work hard, and the rest of the time you sit and talk utter bollocks, like, you know. I mean, the best form of therapy is talking bollocks, like, you know, like just talking completely. And you know ripping the piss out of each other and just. And you know what? Like, see if you're a veteran coming in the first time you hear us ripping each other apart, you go, I recognise that. And I remember.
Definitely.
And that's the atmosphere we're trying to create. You know, we're trying to create something that they think, I get this. I get this, because it's not white coat syndrome. Come and tell me the problems. In fact, a key part of what we do, Stu and Steve, is we never ask where they've been, what they've done, who. We might ask who they serve, because that's a normal conversation. But you know what? Because we don't ask, I can guarantee you they always tell us.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And that's what we've at the breakfast and the Sunday drop-in we have up here in Stevenage. Like, I think it was the other week we had a new face come in, and they were like, bloody hell, like, you lot have only known each other like a few months. It's like, it's like it comes across like you've known each other years, and we're talking about who's the young? What, the youngest could be early 30s, and the oldest is what, late 80s, and there's no difference apart from age as a number. It's incredible.
It's exactly that, mate. I've just taken 2 Americans out of our British group, two Americans and 2 Israelis on our expedition, and stories are the same no matter what country you come from. They're the exact same. So the humour was like, all right, the Israelis boys was a little bit different, but they were both amputees. But the 2 Americans, both ex-soldiers, but both FBI as well, mate. They just slotted straight in. Yeah. The humour was there. Sometimes they look at us as ripping each other apart and go, they must fucking hate each other. But that is our humour. That's
exactly.
the British humour. Like, that's the British military humour. If you've got something wrong with you, guess what? We're going to pick up on it and we're going to battle you on it. But as long as you can take that back, if it's not an equal exchange, then it's not good. Then you don't do it. It's funny, I had a TA guy with us one time, reservist, whatever you call him now. And we were in the workshop one day and he said to a guy, well, I'm getting bullied. And that's something I don't do. Like, I don't accept that. So I took him outside and I went, what's the problem? He says, well, they're bullying me, they're ripping the piss out of me all the time. I says, wait a minute. I says, you start it. Yeah. I says, because he was Remy and he'd take the piss out of the engineers, like, you know.
Remy TA, bloody hell.
And so they battered him back because that's the equal exchange, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I said to him, I says, look, mate, this is the difference between the reservist and the serving army type thing, is that when we're taking the piss at you, you're accepted. If we're not taking the piss, you're on the outside looking in, wanting to be part of it. So you stepping in and taking the piss and us allowing you to do it, that's you accepted. Yeah. When you don't take it back, you're on the outside again. I said, exactly. You have to change. You have to adapt. If you want to be accepted, you have to join in and you're going to give it, take it back tenfold. You know, I'm a wee short, fat guy with injuries and all the other place, mate. I get ripped apart everything. But I love it. That's what it's about, isn't it? You know?
Right, Billy, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, and I know I'm rather on about it.
That's all right. Well, Steve and I will arrange to come down and see the incredible work you're doing. And, I'll put all the links in the show notes and that. But keep doing what you're doing, mate, and look after yourself.
Yeah, mate. I look forward to you coming down, mate. Like, for Steve, I'm sure he was based here at Tidworth. I know it well. We're about 3 miles from Tidworth, like, you know. So I hope I don't bring back bad memories.
Cheers, Billy, mate. Catch you later.
Yeah, all the best, guys. Thank you.